I always believed in giving my wife space. I respected her independence, trusted her completely, and never pried into the details of her personal life. After all, isn't trust the foundation of a strong marriage? At least that's what I used to think. It all started subtly, too subtly for me to question at first. She began talking about personal growth, about reconnecting with herself. She told me about these women's retreats she had started attending, organized by a group that focused on empowerment, healing, and self-discovery. The first one was just a day trip. The next was a full weekend. Then, they became a regular thing. Like clockwork, one weekend a month, always at a secluded wellness center. I didn't object. Why would I? Everyone deserves time for themselves, right? And besides, she always came back refreshed, in a great mood, and oddly affectionate. It felt like these retreats were helping her, maybe even helping our marriage. But then small inconsistencies began piling up. The biggest red flag? She never talked about what actually happened at these retreats. If I asked how her weekend was, she'd respond in vague, rehearsed lines. Oh, lots of meditation, journaling, connecting with nature. She never mentioned any specific activities or people she met. Once I casually asked, "Who do you usually room with?" Her hesitation was almost imperceptible, but I caught it. "Oh, we switch roommates each time," she said quickly. Then, changed the subject. Another time, she forgot her phone at home during one of these weekends. It didn't ring, not once. No messages, no notifications. It was as if she had fallen off the face of the earth. Wouldn't a wellness retreat send at least a courtesy reminder or itinerary? Then, there was the money issue. I handle our finances. We have a shared account for bills, but we each keep separate accounts for personal spending. I never cared much about what she did with her money, but recently I noticed frequent ATM withdrawals, always in cash, always before these weekend retreats. When I casually asked, "Do these places not accept cards?" She laughed it off. "Some of the smaller ones don't, and I like to tip in cash." It made sense, at first. Then something even stranger happened. One night, as we were sitting on the couch, she got a phone call. She glanced at the screen, hesitated for a split second, then declined the call. I didn't think much of it, but then her phone buzzed again. This time a text popped up on her lock screen. I didn't see the full message, but I saw enough. "Are we still on for this weekend? Can't wait to see you again." I glanced at her, but she quickly turned her phone face down and forced a yawn. "Ugh, I'm exhausted. I think I'll turn in early." That night, something in my gut told me that these retreats weren't what she claimed them to be. But I didn't have proof. Not yet. Then my friend Ethan dropped a bombshell. Ethan and I had been friends since college. He wasn't just a buddy. He was the kind of guy who always looked out for me. So when he texted me one afternoon saying, "Hey man, I gotta tell you something. It's about your wife," I felt my stomach drop. We met at a local cafe, and he wasted no time. "Listen, I wasn't sure if I should even bring this up, but I think you need to know. Your wife has an apartment." I blinked. "What?" He nodded, looking uncomfortable. "Yeah. A buddy of mine works in property management. He mentioned her name in passing, said she's been renting this place downtown for a while. I thought maybe you knew, but then I realized you never mentioned anything about it." My mind was racing. An apartment? Why would she need an apartment? "How long has she had it?" I asked. "At least 6 months. Maybe longer." I tried to stay calm, but the pieces started clicking into place. The cash withdrawals, the secretive behavior, the retreats that never had an itinerary. I asked Ethan for the address. The moment he gave it to me, I knew what I had to do. I went home, acted normal, and waited for my wife to announce her next retreat. Sure enough, that Friday, she packed her bags with the same routine she always did. She kissed me goodbye, told me she'd have limited cell service, and walked out the door like nothing was wrong. I waited an hour before I drove to the apartment. When I got there, I didn't just park outside like some paranoid husband. I walked in. The building had a keypad entry system, but Ethan's friend had already given me the details. I stepped into the hallway, heart pounding, and found her door. It had her name on it. Not mine, just hers. That was all the confirmation I needed. Now I could have confronted her then and there. I could have kicked the door in, demanded an explanation, thrown accusations. But that wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she had done. So instead of blowing up, I walked back to the leasing office, introduced myself as her husband, and made an offer to rent the apartment for a full week. The next part? I changed the locks. The key felt cold in my hand as I locked the door to her secret apartment. It was mine now. Legally rented under my name, locks changed, her access revoked. Now all I had to do was wait. I sat on the couch and took a deep breath, letting the reality of the moment sink in. I had just taken over the secret life she thought she was so clever at hiding. The apartment she paid for behind my back, the place she ran off to every retreat weekend, this was mine now. I looked around, taking in the details I hadn't noticed before. The decor was modern, sleek, nothing like our home. No shared memories. No familiar touches. Just a pristine space built for one purpose. A life without me in it. And the fridge. That was the first thing that set me off. It was fully stocked. Unlike the half-empty shelves back at our house where she always claimed we needed to cut back on groceries. She had been living luxuriously here, while I was at home believing we were watching our budget. I opened a bottle of water and moved to the bedroom. There it was. A closet full of clothes. Clothes I had never seen her wear. Designer dresses, high-end, heels, perfumes I didn't even know she owned. And then the framed picture. It was her, standing on a balcony overlooking the city skyline, a glass of wine in her hand, looking radiant, relaxed, happy, a version of her that I hadn't seen in years, but there was no picture of us, not one. That was when I knew, without a doubt, that this apartment wasn't just some quiet place of retreat. This was her new life. I noticed a laptop on the kitchen counter, still open but in sleep mode. I tapped the spacebar, half expecting it to be locked behind a password. It wasn't. She really didn't expect to get caught. I clicked through her emails. The first thing I found? A string of messages between her and someone named Jay. Dinner reservations for 2, hotel bookings for 2, weekend plans for 2. Everything was planned so meticulously, down to the smallest details. She had been curating an entire second existence outside of our marriage, and the more I scrolled, the angrier I became. But I didn't lose control. I didn't throw things, didn't yell, didn't call her, I just started saving everything. Screenshots, emails, receipts, messages, every single piece of evidence. By the time I was done, I had enough proof to completely destroy the illusion she had built. And now I waited. Her flight was scheduled to land at 5:45 p.m. That meant she'd be here by 7 p.m., expecting to walk in, kick off her shoes, pour herself a glass of wine, and maybe send a quick text to Jay about how much she missed him. But instead, she was about to walk into a nightmare. I settled onto the couch, flicking through the TV channels. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't nervous. I was enjoying this. At exactly 7:08 p.m., I heard it. The jingle of keys. Then a pause. Another jingle. Then knocking. I smirked. She had no idea yet. There was another knock, more impatient this time. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of her trying to force the handle down. I waited a moment, savoring it before walking to the door and peeking through the peephole. Her expression? Absolutely priceless. Confusion. Annoyance. The faintest trace of panic. She reached for her phone, and within seconds, mine started vibrating. Of course, she was calling me first, pretending everything was normal, keeping up the act. I let it ring. Then, without a word, I unlocked the door and swung it open. She froze. The look on her face was pure horror. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her hand was still half raised as if she had been about to knock again. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, and smirked. "Hey, honey," I said. "Long trip?" Her face drained of color. Now the real game began. She stood there, frozen, her lips parting slightly as if to say something, but nothing came out. Her eyes flickered past me into the apartment, and I could see her brain struggling to process what was happening. This was her secret place. Her escape. Her carefully built illusion. And now, I was standing in the doorway like I owned the place. Because I did. What? What are you doing here? She finally stammered, gripping her purse like it was a lifeline. Raised an eyebrow. Shouldn't I be asking you that? Her jaw clenched. Panic. Defensiveness. The calculations happening in real time behind her eyes. I could see it all. It's a retreat weekend. I told you. I held up a hand. Yeah, I know. Women's empowerment, self-care, all that. Sounds nice. I took a step back, widening the doorway, gesturing inside. You want to come in? She hesitated. She didn't want. Her gaze flicked down to the lock. The new lock. Her nostrils flared. Did you change the locks? I tilted my head, pretending to think about it. Oh yeah, probably should have mentioned that. A pause. Her face twisted as she tried to regain control. This is insane, this is my… She stopped herself. Almost said my apartment. Instead, she swallowed. Hard. I stepped forward closer to her, lowering my voice. Yours? She blinked rapidly. No, I mean, it's a place the retreat books for us. I didn't even need to respond. The lie was so weak it collapsed under its own weight. Instead, I pulled out my phone and casually tapped a few times. That's weird because I just got off the phone with the retreat director. Her face twitched. She seemed really confused when I asked about this apartment. I continued, watching her squirm. Said they don't rent places like this. Said they only do workshops. At the center. Her breathing was getting shallower now. You called them? I smiled. Oh, I called a lot of people. I could almost hear her heart pounding in her chest. I stepped back, finally giving her space to walk inside. Come on in, I said, voice casual. Let's talk. She didn't move. She couldn't, because she knew. She knew the second she stepped inside, it would confirm everything. That I had been through her things, her emails, her receipts. That I had seen it all. The silence stretched between us, thick, suffocating. She had no way out. She took a shaky breath. This is crazy, I tilted my head. Is it? She clenched her fists. Yes, you're acting paranoid. This is controlling, it's abusive. There it was. The shift. The desperate attempt to flip the script. I stayed calm. Unbothered. Abusive, I repeated, like I was genuinely curious. You mean like lying to your husband? Hiding a second home? Draining money into private accounts? Sleeping with… She lurched forward, grabbing my arm. Stop! Her voice cracked. She knew I had her. I pulled my arm back slowly, looking down at where she had touched me like she was something disgusting. You need to leave, she snapped, trying to regain control. I exhaled through my nose. That was the final straw. I took out my phone, swiped, and turned the screen toward her. Her face dropped. Emails, screenshots, texts, all neatly displayed in a folder labeled, Your Lies. I'm not going anywhere, I said, voice cold. But you are. Her lips trembled. I cut her off. Everything in this place packed up, all your little secrets, documented. Your whole plan? I smiled. Over. She opened her mouth, then closed it, because she had nothing left. No lies to tell, no tricks to pull. For the first time, she was completely powerless. And I had never felt stronger. The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating. I could see the war raging inside her. Fight or flee. She was calculating, desperately searching for a way out, a loophole, a last-minute excuse that would make me back down. But there wasn't one. Her lips parted. I didn't let her finish. Your name's not on the lease, I said, cutting through her hesitation like a blade. You have no legal right to be here. Her mouth snapped shut. Her breathing was uneven now, her hands shaking slightly. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as if trying to compose herself. She pointed a trembling finger at me. This isn't right. You can't just… I pulled the door halfway shut, not slamming it, just making it clear. Your key doesn't work anymore, I said, voice flat. Your bags aren't inside, I packed everything up, it's at the front desk. You'll find your clothes, your toiletries, your burner phone. She flinched at that. Bingo. I nodded, confirming her worst fear. I knew everything. She inhaled sharply. You went through my things? I let the silence speak for itself. Her face twisted. That's illegal. I laughed. Actually laughed. You know what else is illegal? I asked, tilting my head. Fraud, hiding assets, identity deception. Should I keep going? She was trembling now, her nails digging into her palm. She opened her mouth again, but I spoke first. You have two options. Her breath hitched. One, I continued. You turn around, walk away, and start figuring out where to stay tonight. A flicker of defiance. And the other? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I let the door swing all the way open. The other is that you step inside and I show you every single piece of evidence I've gathered," I said calmly. "We sit down, and I walk you through exactly how I'm dismantling everything you've built behind my back." Her pupils dilated. She knew what that meant. If she stepped inside, it was over. Not just this apartment, not just the lies. Her entire game. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her squirm. "So what's it gonna be?" Her jaw clenched. I could see the moment she realized she turned on her heel and walked away. Not a word. Not a fight. Nothing. Just left. I watched her disappear down the hallway, her pace stiff, controlled, like she was holding herself together by sheer willpower. And then, I shut the door, locked it, bolted it. Done. I let out a slow breath, running a hand through my hair. It was over, but the war wasn't won yet, not even close. I leaned against the door, heart hammering in my chest. She was gone. But I knew this wasn't over. Not really. She wasn't the type to take a loss gracefully. No, she'd be plotting her next move already. Calling her lawyer, trying to find a way to twist this against me. But I was 3 steps ahead. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up my phone and scrolled through the screenshots. The financial records, the hidden bank accounts, the burner phone logs, the rental agreement with her name on it, proving this wasn't just some innocent women's retreat. It was premeditated. I took a deep breath, then hit send. One message to her family, her closest friends, even her workplace. Not a dramatic expose, just the facts. No anger, no accusations, just cold, hard proof. I kept it simple. "Hey, just so you know, her name has been renting a secret apartment for months while telling me she was at retreats. I found out, confronted her, and now she's locked out. Just thought you should hear it from me first." Within minutes, my phone exploded. Her sister. WTF? Her best friend. Wait, what? OMG, call me. Her boss. "We need to talk." She wanted to play dirty? Fine. But this wasn't a battle anymore. It was a controlled demolition. I walked over to the minibar, poured myself a drink, and waited. It didn't take long. My phone rang. Her. I let it ring. Then again. And again. A text popped up. "What the hell did you do?" I smiled, took a sip. Let her sit in the wreckage of her choices. I finally replied, "Cleaning up your mess. You should start doing the same." Minutes later, I got a text from her sister. She just showed up at my place sobbing. "What do you want me to tell her?" I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "That's up to you. But don't let her lie to you." And just like that, the house of cards collapsed. She could spin whatever story she wanted, cry and beg. But the truth was out. She had spent months sneaking around, lying, covering her tracks. And now, she had nowhere to go. Her secret apartment was mine. Her double life was exposed. Her reputation destroyed by her own actions. And as I stood there watching the city lights outside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Peace.